Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our panel discussion. Whether it is to check if the school is shut today because of the rains, or it is to check the latest update in the poll campaign in the state. Regional news platforms are always the preferred platform. It enjoys immense popularity. But just as diverse as India's culture and every state's nuances differ, similarly the media landscapes also differ. In some states, people still prefer to read the newspaper in the morning for their daily dose of news, while some prefer television news. While these diversities exist, we'll discuss that. We'd love in this panel. We'd love to get into the nuances of how different these how these different cultural nuances affect the business. We'd also like to talk about how you all navigate this ever-evolving landscape and what this means for the digital landscape, since all three of you come from that background. All of you operate in different states. You're operating in West Bengal, you are in Karnataka, and your regional News Minutes Tamil platform is for Tamil Nadu. Each state is different. Vignesh, would you like to start by telling us in what ways do regional factors such as language, culture, and political dynamics influence the challenges and opportunities faced by the organization?
Yeah, you want to repeat that again? Your introduction was so big, I just got lost a little bit here and there. But
In
what challenges do you want me to talk about? The challenges, right?
Yeah.
Okay, 1 year ago, if I was sitting on this stage and I was talking, I would have probably presented a very different picture as to how my organization has been run. We were predominantly focusing on a lot more on advertising, the very traditional model of news. But right now, those things have completely changed, and we're focusing a lot more on memberships and subscriptions and stuff like that. Just coming back to your question, see, we operate from the southern part of the country, so we focus only on the 5 southern states. And I've actively looked at the media landscape in these states. So if you look at a state like Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, a lot of the digital platforms or the media platforms out there have some kind of political affiliation, right? So that becomes a problem. There are no independent websites as such, apart from the legacy ones, which is completely different. I'm not speaking about the legacy or big media from that perspective. If you look at Kerala, Kerala as a state is very, very mature when it comes to news, right? So they actually read a lot more in the vernacular in Malayalam as compared to English as well, okay? Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, from a news perspective, the challenges that we face is if you write a really, really good story, go to the ground, focus on something which is either civil liberties, anything to do with water, pollution, any of those kind of things, minorities and stuff like that, it never gets read. They, I think, have a tendency to read a lot more on entertainment and those kind of articles as such. If you look at Karnataka, it's very skewed because you have a lot of people in this, it's a very cosmopolitan state at the end of the day, right? I mean, Bangalore as a city is completely cosmopolitan. So you get a wide range of things that you can actually read on. Politics obviously is high up there, but they read a lot more on civic issues because this population probably will be a population which may not be voting from here, but they're very, very interested in what's happening with the city. See, language for a organization like ours is extremely challenging because we've got 5 states with 4 different languages. Unlike, when you look up the north, you can have probably a website which runs in English and then translates to the same kind of content in Hindi, and then you can survive because, a lot of states consume the news content in Hindi. But for us, and that's one of the biggest challenges that we face, we cannot afford to have separate news desks for Telugu or Kannada or Malayalam or even Tamil for that matter. And Kerala as a state is very advanced in such a way from a news perspective. They've had one of the early news channels which was 24 hours and stuff like that. So very difficult for us to enter into that market and from the vernacular perspective. That's the reason why we've started off only in Tamil Nadu right now. So we have a YouTube channel which only focuses on Tamil Nadu. I mean, in the language which is Tamil. And we've seen a lot of, traffic which is resonating from that particular region because the consumption of news also is extremely high from that place. Anyway, I won't take too long. I'll give it to them as well so that...
So, how are the consumer preferences different for the language audience as compared to the English audience? Do they prefer to consume content more in visuals, more in text, more of videos?
Yeah. Firstly, thank you for having me here. Um, I mean, as you can see, we are all three publishers sitting here, and we are the real hustlers. I mean, in this room, if you ask us, I mean, we are the real hustlers, right? I have been in the digital media space for almost 20 years now, and believe me, there hasn't been a year where the entire thing has not changed, right? I mean, overnight you see changes happening in the digital media space, and publishers have to kind of gear up to them. And if I have to ask probably one product which I would need from the previous this, maybe one agarbatti for publishers, maybe it will be helpful. Where we light up one agarbatti or two agarbattis, yeah, to kind of start a day and make it profitable. Yeah. So we're all chasing kind of a distant dream. Every publisher has his own challenges. I work for the printers Mysore, and we just have one language site, which is Kannada. To answer your question, the preferences in terms of textual content or video content, obviously there is a trend where we are seeing a lot of video content getting consumed. But being a legacy publisher, our forte is in the textual space, right, where we put out narratives and opinions, and we find a lot of followers or loyal audiences reading that kind of a content. We would still want to kind of pursue the long form type of journalism because we feel that is where the real meat is. Right? If someone does real journalism, goes out on the field and tries and kind of captures something, it can't be just put out in a short form video or which is something which is called snackable and things like that, right? It has to have its own space, and the depth that the story needs to be captured, and textual is something which we personally feel should this, and it kind of resonates. And if you are looking at a subscription model, obviously these kind of stories kind of really help you to get that conversion. Someone who's sitting on the edge and thinking about taking a subscription or not, these kind of content really compel them to kind of take the plunge.
Neha, the audience that you cater to, that the national media is also catering to that same audience. How are your challenges different?
So I'll just add on to this in terms of, as AVP Digital, we also have an English platform, which is Telegraph Online. There is a certain pride that a Bengali takes in terms of their language and their culture. That really works for us because Bangla first is what their preference is. Being a news publisher, and that market is focused on news and politics and update. And like I said, it's a reader's market. So all these things work for, in our favor, and that's why we've been that preferred, go-to news publisher for West Bengal. And it's a habit, honestly. Anand Bazaar has become more of a habit. That's how it works, and that shows in the numbers that we get out of West Bengal also. So yeah, so that really works in our favor.
If you want me to add to that,
Yeah.
see, basically, I think that, I'm only going to speak from the South perspective, but we've seen that Telangana and Andhra Pradesh consume a lot more content on the video space. Karnataka surprisingly reads, which is something which we also understood pretty much late in the game. So a lot of our articles have been translated into Kannada and have been very well received. Tamil Nadu is skewed completely towards video. They do read, but the content is not based on politics and stuff like that, because again, in that state, a lot of the media houses are either, or have some kind of connection to some kind of political houses. So you're actually not getting independent news. But none of these 5 states have a very small independent publisher, like a News Minute or like a Scroll or the Quint and stuff like that, which are operating out of these states. Kerala, to a large extent, yes, but like I said, Kerala is completely mature from a news perspective, so they really do both text and video, and both of them work very well from their perspective.
And Vignesh, in that case, how do the revenue models vary when you have to offer them different formats on the same website? How does your revenue model vary, and what are the challenges in getting subscribers?
So I won't talk about the revenue from an advertising perspective because we're completely moved. But whenever we were actually doing ads, see, it all depends on the purchasing power at the end of the day, right? You don't see big ads on vernacular channels, right? Or whatever, YouTube and stuff like that. You're not going to see, whatever, Mercedes-Benz or Jaguar putting out ads in Tamil or Malayalam or Kannada and stuff like that, right? But at the same time, you also see ads which are pertaining to gold, diamond, and all being translated. So I don't know whether it's actual purchasing power. I think it's because the advertising industry has decided that you don't need to show a high-end car ad on a vernacular website because nobody's going to buy it, against showing gold. So that's something that has always confused me. I've never understood that part. From a subscription perspective, we've been doing this for the last almost a year now, actively looking at memberships. And I agree with him when he said that content is king. If you do not have good content, you will never be able to convert those people into paying readers. And please understand, the paying journey is not a one-time thing. You don't read a story today and decide that tomorrow you're going to become a member of this organization or become a subscriber of that. It takes a long time, it's a long conversion, but the key is to be consistent. We've actually narrowed it down to four C's, as we call it. One is, you obviously, the content, that's what matters. Then second thing is, are you communicating it enough? Are you telling people that you're doing these kind of stories? The third one is being consistent about it. If you're taking a particular issue, try to be consistent about it. And the last one is, are you able to build a community of sorts? If you put these things together, I think that's when you move into a subscription. Larger players are focusing on reach and then revenue. That's to answer your question. We are focusing on a model which is recognition, which converts into revenue. And that will only be happening through memberships and subscriptions.
Neha, you have a different opinion. You want to talk about it?
A little different because, of course, the market and the sensibilities and the whole thing for the audience is very different. On a platform like Ananda Bazaar, which is catering to the Bengalis, we do have premium brands, we do have luxury brands that advertise with us because they understand that to reach that audience, they need us. They need the power of that language because, like I said, the pride in the language of that region is what gets us going. And whether it is high-end mobile phones, whether it is luxury watches, they're all actively, I'm not talking about programmatic, I'm talking about specific direct campaigns that they run on our platform. So yes, that's what, is the difference maybe from one language to the other that I can highlight here.
Right. But Neha, if you compare it to, let's say a TOI publication, which has, languages, several languages, and even English, it's a big publisher, your ad inventory would be limited as compared to them, right? How then do you continue to do innovations in advertising?
So I'll correct you at that, and it's a great insight that I'll add, that if you actually see, and when I was talking about the time spent on the website, the average pages read per user, and we're talking about inventory, when I have over 100 million page views a month as per ComScore, my inventory is there, right? I do not have a dearth of inventory for sure. And, but the other publishers who are doing multiple languages, and that's where, in the last session also when we were talking about AI, they do not have that kind of time spent or page views or the inventory. And the advertisers understand that. And they understand, see, Bangla is the second most spoken language in the country. It is the 7th most spoken language in the world, right? Are you focusing enough on that language is something that we need to put across to the advertisers, and they understand that. Once you give them, and they're changing, the thought process is changing. As far as revenues are concerned, it becomes the, thing for us in terms of as the leading publishers in various languages, and I feel all of them should do that they need to pivot. And like I said in the previous session also, they need to become the partners. It's not possible for an advertising agency or a brand to have people with expertise in 22 different languages. That's what we should bring to the table for our advertisers, and that will help us get the revenue, and that is how we've been growing year on year. That's it.
I just want to clarify, I was saying limited inventory as compared to a publication like TOI.
So to give you a perspective, Nav Bharat Times, Hindi, HSM, gets about 200 million odd page views a month. So if I'm getting only in Bangla about 100 million plus, you're doing something right.
All right. Suhaib, both of them have spoken about their monetization, advertising plus subscriber. Would you like to add to that? What are the challenges in for regional publications in this?
Yeah, one of the challenges, like you rightly said, is to kind of have multiple sites in different languages, right? For a small publication like us, we cannot invest. We can't have journalists, or we can't have a team, a resource. I mean, to kind of put it behind and then kind of come up with websites, right? On the fly, it's not possible. So what we have done is, in the last 2 years, we have a small consortium in the south. It's called SPP, South Premium Publishers, where Prajavani, which is a Kannada site, Malayalam Manorama, Enadu, and the other site is the Tamil site, Dinamalar. All these 4 sites have come together. We formed a small consortium to tackle the reach challenge, right? If an advertiser is looking at reaching these 4 main states, they can take this SPP pack. So that's for the advertising. And of course, one live example is News Minute joining hands with News Laundry to tackle the subscription game. Right, so that there the user sees value, where there are two sides of different, the value or the kind of journalism that they cover is entirely different. I mean, it's different, right? They cover South, where News Laundry has a different take on politics or policies or many things, right? So I think if publishers can come together, you can tackle these things quickly, and then you can ramp up your sales as well.
Vignesh, how important is audience engagement and loyalty to sustain a regional publication?
Yeah, absolutely. See, we focus on community building, right? We want to ensure that our readers are coming to us for a particular story or reporting on certain kind of issues and stuff like that. More so also they're coming to us because they feel that, they're not able to find certain kind of content in big media or legacy media and stuff like that, right? I mean, we know the media situation in the country as of now. For us as a publication, we are not looking at a journey or an association or the engagement with the reader for today. We're looking at it for the next 3 years, for the next 4 years, for the next 5 years. We want to make sure that, we are living up to the standards of when a reader comes to us and says, I will click and I will pay and I've become a subscriber. The journey doesn't end there. Hey, I got your money, I'm done with it. We're not we're not like a website which says that we take money from advertising and we serve 100 million impressions or something like that. It's a continuous process. So we have a very engaged model where every week the person who pays gets updates on what's happening, not just with the stories that we do. We involve them in members meet, and then we come to them and say that, hey, why don't you come help us with whatever you want to help? And to be very honest, we've had multiple members meet, and in Bangalore, which is our most loyal audience, we've had about 250 people coming, and we've got a wide range of things which they have been offered to us, including people who come to us and say, we'll develop your entire app. If you're doing election coverage, then we'll make sure that, we give you transportation. If you're going into the, interior parts of Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, or wherever where our relatives are, we'll give you accommodation. So it's not a one-way street. It's a very two-way association that we have. We take a lot of pride in making sure that, we are actively engaged with our audience. And like I said, it's not a journey which has to end in the next 6 months or when your subscription ends. We're aiming this from a long run perspective. Loyalty building is the most important thing that we focus on, and we're hoping that our subscribers stay with us as long as News Minute and News Laundry are in publication.
So with the coming of these independent digital platforms, how do legacy publications like Printers Mysore ensure that their loyalty also continues?
See, we have, obviously you have a categorization of your users, right? By brand lovers, you have a loyal list, and then you have anonymous users. Obviously, your brand lovers are going to stick with you for a longer time because they believe in your journalism, the way you kind of, present your content and how true you are to what you are delivering, right? So that's going to stay, those audiences are going to stay with you. And that is the audience that you have to go after if you are looking for a long-term game, right? Keeping ad revenue aside, if you want to look at subscription, that's the audience you have to go after. But that's a very small, very small this. But if you're able to convert that user and then get them to pay for your content, obviously the loyalty is going to be with you for a longer time, right? In the subscription game, and I always believe that subscription is a game of inches, right? You have to take very small steps. You have to kind of understand your audience, at what phase they are in. Are they ready for, shelling out that money and paying for content? Or they are still happy with the way you present content and they are ready to consume, with ads. So that's the audience which we want to kind of keep them, intact. The loyal audience is something which is still dilly-dallying between ads and, whether they want to kind of really be with you. That's an audience where little bit of a content diversification is required, right? You have to keep. So in terms of metrics, there are two types of metrics. Right? One is an intermediate metrics which is tracked on a daily basis by the team as well as by the editors. When I say team, business teams as well as editors. And there is an outcome metrics which is actually only tracked by the business teams. So this intermediate metrics is something which the entire organization needs to be aware of. And they have to be in sync. So as a strategy, as a content strategy, as a growth strategy, the intermediate metrics needs to be completely transparent to the entire organization so that everybody is in line, right? And that's the audience which you have to kind of nurture and push them to becoming your brand loyalists. Anonymous users are someone which you can't really, work on or do anything about it. They just click on your link through any source. It could be social, it could be Google Discover or search, wherever, right? They'll come just this, and those audience, you will have to keep them, invested. We have to invest in them only through ads. Otherwise, there's no option.
Neha, do you see scope to expand beyond Bangla into niche dialects as well? And not just beyond Anand Bazar, if you could speak for the overall industry, do you see scope for business for these niche dialects?
Yes, of course. In terms of when we're talking about the text part of things, maybe not, but of course when you're doing videos, dialects are extremely important. And we've seen in some well-known even YouTube channels where they've used colloquial Hindi, the language that they use. Forget about Bangla, I'm talking about basic Hindi. The kind of numbers that they see have been phenomenal. And that's how the next step would be. And every publisher, no matter, when I talk about our brand, for example, it's a 102-year-old brand. Legacy, when you say, is something that sticks with us. But if we don't evolve, especially on a digital media, we're not going to retain our consumers at all. We're not going to retain our audiences at all. So yes, that whole thing has to happen. Especially for dialects, I think more than, moving into that direction, it's important that we consolidate or partner with people who are already there, who've already established themselves, and then take it forward from there. Because starting, until and unless you have the right people, and you understand the sensibilities of the region that you're talking about, and I'm not just talking about a state, it's also the smaller areas in the dialects that you're talking about, you'll not succeed. Yeah.
Vignesh, you operate in 5 states. What do you think? What is the scope for dialects like Tulu?
See, I completely agree that there is a lot of scope, okay, especially. It's just that where do you find the money from, right? Who's going to give you money to invest in news? And it's not easy to build a subscription model which can sustain a news organization. It's hard enough to do it in one language. Just imagine how many other languages and dialects that you'll have to do it with. But yes, there is a lot of scope. You just need either AI to come and translate it into those languages, or you need some big conglomerate like Google who believes that, okay, fine, news has to be given to the people the way they want it to be served, and then probably pump in so much of money and then grow it. But I don't know about the advertising part of things, because that's something that we really genuinely don't focus on. Does it make sense to have a publication running in Tulu, and then you have a brand which advertises in Tulu? That part is something maybe Neha might be able to answer that better than me. But the need definitely is there. There are a lot of people who actually read. If you look at the numbers, I think from an English perspective, people who consume news stands at about 90 to 100 million in a country like ours. The average top 3 websites, digital players in a state like just Tamil Nadu will be running into 300, 400 million page views. So the volume is definitely there. I don't think the money is there though.
All right. For digital platforms, it's very important to engage on social media. But for regional platforms, they are going to be engaging with their audience on a largely English-speaking social media, right? What are the challenges that brings, and how do you deal with that? So, if you could take it, you could add later.
I think fundamentally, I think we should stop distributing content through social media.
I'll shake your hand for that.
Yeah, because I think enough is enough, right? I mean, even search has come down, right? Search also has come down heavily on publishers, and we are seeing the madness in terms of just publishers running haywire to kind of figure out what to do next. Recently, there was an update where even carrying branded content on your website is getting scrutinized by search. It's called site abuse update. So a lot of things are not in favor of publishers today. So I will strongly, like I said, recommend not to kind of publish content. I mean, believe in your reader. Look at reader revenue as a source of revenue. I mean, that's the only way for publishers. I mean, especially for leading legacy publishers and publishers who are starting, I think that's the way out. Even in Substack today, if you look at most of the independent journalists who have started their own channel, they are taking that route. And it's kind of helping, I mean, it's slow, but I think eventually if you see value in a person or an organization, obviously you will start paying for it. I mean, the analogy that my boss used to make is that you have started paying for water today, right? You don't drink free water anywhere in the road, anywhere, right? You start paying for water. So similarly, content or journalism needs to be paid. So that's the only way out. So,
Neha, you want to add to that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I agree that, but the unfortunate part for many publishers, like the ones that are focusing on the content and what the consumer is looking at and the audience is looking at, they can look at, the paid model because they're adding value to the reader. As long as you do that, you can move to that direction. In fact, we're also, contemplating and making the plans around it. But if you're just translating or transliterating any which way, I don't think the consumer will pay. And unfortunately, for a lot of news publishers today, just in the fight and the race to multiply their languages, they have not added value to their audiences. So I don't think that model will work for those publishers, but the ones who are focused and have a proper news desk, have the right input, are customizing their content, they can look at the subscription model and add value.
Right. We have 3 minutes. Does the audience have any questions? Yes. Can someone send a mic?
Hi, this is Surya from Transform Digital Studios, Bangalore. My question is to Vignesh. Hi, Vignesh. I loved your insights on how was the consumers split between video and reading. And my question is, I've seen my grandmom reading magazines in the past during my childhood. I've seen my dad reading newspapers 10 years ago. And now both of them consume video content on YouTube. So I want to ask you, what do you think will be the plight of newspapers? Will I still get to see newspapers 5 years down the lane?
I've said this in many events. I think India is the only country where newspapers will thrive. Okay, it'll still continue here. And there's a lot of reasons to it. You've got the biggest, big media which is there, which is never going to let it down. I'll give you a classic example. And this is from an advertising perspective. I had met an agency many years ago and I said, why would you want to publish ads on the newspaper, right? I mean, it's so much more cheaper on the digital space, plus you're reaching multiple more millions than the number of people who actually consume newspapers. So he said, you put an ad, whether it's Amazon or it's a real estate developer, and at 8 o'clock in the morning, there's a call-free number which you publish on that newspaper. From 8 o'clock onwards, that call-free number will ring continuously. The spike that Amazon will get at 7:30 after the newspaper is given, and you see that front page ad, saying that this big billion sale, whatever sale, the spike that Amazon sees is something that you cannot even compare. Digital media, he says, will never reach that. So until that dies, India as a country will always have newspapers. Now coming to your thing on YouTube, I also believe that, see, Facebook as a platform is completely dead from a publishing perspective, but for languages, surprisingly, it still works. But YouTube is probably the single biggest discoverer of good content. Our biggest lead, our not biggest lead, the most number of leads that we get from a subscription or a membership come through YouTube. It's something that I obviously did not believe when I actually saw the statistics, but it helps in discovering good content, especially if you follow such things. But newspapers in this country, I don't think will die, man. Sure, sure.
I think newspapers in India have a huge advantage, which I think is underrated, which is that newspapers are still delivered to your home. The West, it died because the cost of delivering newspapers was prohibitive, because people were very expensive. And India, it is still a habit because it lands at home. I think we tend to overlook that.
All
Also,
right.
not to be very controversial, newspapers, the publishers have certain kind of benefits for running newspapers. Their GST is just 5% compared to digital platforms where we pay about 18%. So they will never let that industry die, man.
All right, time's up. Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation.